Hello, this is Esmeralda, and this is a presentation for the midterm for Psych 516. Chapter 1, Question 1. How have recent historical events affected the course of research in organizational psychology? Give an example of an event and the resulting outcome. Through time, there has been several events that have affected the course of research in organizational psychology. There has been interest on how individuals behave in organizational settings, but more recently, there have been attempts to influence those behaviors and also to study the behaviors more. The event recognized as the beginning of organizational psychology was the Hawthorne studies, in which Western Electric Company, together with researchers from Harvard University, were interested in investigating the impact of environmental factors on workers' productivity. The findings and the results of this study is now known as the Hawthorne effect, which entails that any changes in the work environment will cause positive reaction on people. Events like this led to more research and also more important findings. Historical events that led to contributions of the field also include more global events such as World War II, which marks the first attempts to understand how diversity impacts organizations. Other events, such as the fall of the Soviet Union and the fall of the communist regime, impact the field of organizational psychology by sparking interest in organizational psychologists on how to help organizations transition from communist governments into a more democratic economy. More recent historical events, such as 9/11, recent elections, and new technological advances have affected the course of research in organizational psychology. For instance, the events of 9/11 created awareness for organizations to have emergency preparedness. Because of those events, many organizations have now in place emergency plans as well as emergency kits just in case of an emergency. The election of 2008 was the first time that the United States had elected an African American president, which led to research about diversity and how to improve diversity in organizations. New advances in technology are also being researched by organizational psychologists for the purpose of understanding how this new technology offers benefits to organizations, how it helps the organizations become more globalized, and the cost of this new and fast growing development. Chapter 3. Question number 2. Describe the socialization process for graduate students in your program. Is the program successful in socializing newcomers and creating job embeddedness? According to Jackson Britt 2014, socialization is a process through which an outsider or a new recruit becomes a member of an organization. From the recruitment process to the beginning of the program, the socialization process of the graduate students for industrial and organizational psychology is informative. Because the program is an online program, the process of socialization is also for the most part informal. And the main forms of communication are mainly indirect or are done through technology, which is emails and postings on Blackboard. The socialization process of the program does not end at the beginning or once the member becomes enrolled in the program or classes. It's an ongoing process that keeps socializing the members through time, and it doesn't end until the person graduates from the university if the person chooses to do so. There's also an opportunity for students to socialize through their enrollment due to new classes. When new classes start, there is a socialization process, a short one, that happens with introducing themselves, getting to know the new members and the new professors that they have with each of the classes. For the most part, the socialization process of the program is successful in capturing the culture of the organization and increasing student involvement and commitment. The program, based on the classes I have taken so far, is realistic to the real work environment. Therefore, the knowledge that I have gained, I have successfully put it in place or applied it in my job. The program has been successful in creating job embeddedness because the focus is on teaching real issues within the workplace and by preparing program members for realistic job expectations. Question number 3, this is for chapter 4. How can organization reduce or prevent work-family conflict? According to Jacks and Britt 2014, work-family conflict is defined as a bidirectional and inter-role conflict in which the demands of one domain are incompatible with the demands of another domain. Work-family conflict occurs when people develop more roles and the demands for the roles conflict with one another. As there's career advancement, the demands can get higher and higher, and that can actually create conflict as the person is trying to achieve or be able to deal with all the roles that this person is taking on. The transition between roles can also cause conflict for the individual. Work-family conflict can be induced by the organization by which the individual works through policies and daily demands. Organizational support can help reduce the work-family conflict by implementing policies and benefits for employees to help balance work and family. Also, the job can redesign the job to help employees with this type of conflict. Work-family policies can maintain a balance between work demands and family demands, such as parenting, education, self-care, and care for others. Family-friendly organizations could also offer services and benefits such as daycare, flex time, and telecommunicating. Family-friendly organizations are successful when reducing the work-family conflict because they can reduce turnover and increase job satisfaction for their employees. It can also improve their attitude and the motivation that they have for going to work, which could potentially increase the success of the company as well. Another way that organization can help their employees is by making sure that the employees have support from their supervisors. And also, the culture of the organization can help the employee feel and be more aware of the policies that they have in place to help them with this type of conflicts. If the employee feels that there is no support from the organization or there's no support from the supervisors, they can feel that they will have a repercussion for using and making use of those policies that are available for them. So it's really important for companies and organizations to find ways to communicate that these policies are in place for them to use and be able to avoid any work-family related conflict. Chapter 5, question 4. Imagine you have been asked to develop a performance assessment program for employee development. What techniques could you use to adequately evaluate employee performance as comprehensively as possible? Think of Murphy's List. Jacks and Britt's 2014 definition of job performance is all the behaviors employees engage in while at work. Job performance is not limited to the behaviors that are task-related, meaning job performance is the overall behaviors that the employees are engaging during working hours. Job performance is related or evaluated by the organization based on employee responsibilities and duties. And according to Campbell 1990, job performance has 3 components: effectiveness, productivity, and utility. Effectiveness entails the evaluation of results of employees and job performance, while productivity takes into account the cost of achieving a given level of performance or effectiveness. Utility, on the other hand, is the value given to the organization to the level of performance, effectiveness, or productivity. According to Jackson Britt, 2014, employees have more control of the performance that they do of productivity and effectiveness. There's not specific direct method of measuring job performance, but there has been some suggestions as far as how to measure the job performance, and some of the suggestions that have been done by Murphy, that he proposes that job performance can be assessed with paper pencil test, job skills test, on-site hands-on test, off-site hands-off testing, high fidelity simulations, task ratings, and global ratings. If I had been asked to develop a performance assessment program for employee development, the first step would be to research the task or main functions of the company or organization, excuse me. Based on this, the next step would be to take into consideration several factors when developing an accurate assessment for the performance of the employees. Some of these factors that will be taken into consideration will be ability to learn the task, physical and mental ability, like I've mentioned before. Also, the attitude that the person or the employee has could also be a potential use when it comes to being able to develop an accurate assessment for job performance. The first of the, based on Murphy's list techniques such as on-site hands-on testing and task ratings, will be a more effective way of measuring the employee's performance. The assessment will not be limited only to this tool, but this tool will definitely provide more focus on task-specific or task-related functions. So this will be the main focus on the assessment that I would create. On-site hands testing would allow for assessment of various variables, such as how well the employee knows the task. It would also allow for variables such as physical abilities. It would give the employer a little bit more of an insight of what the person is capable of doing as far as mentally and physical abilities. It would also show the employer how well and or what type of skills the employee is using to be able to perform those tasks. Another way that I would assess job performance would also be by doing ratings. The rating or the set rate would be based on the company needs and what the goal of the organization at the end of the shift would be. Also, other factors that could be taken into consideration would be how much volume they are processing, let's say, or based on what the headcount is, or how many people they have to process certain amount of units. This form of assessment, they will give the employee a better idea or where the employee stands when it comes to performing a task. If the employee is unable to meet the rate, an on-site hands-on testing could be done to assess the barriers that the employees experience when performing the specific task. Chapter 6, question 5. What are some possible common organizational constraints? How could they lead to counterproductive behaviors? Possible common organizational constraints include leadership, culture of the organization, the process the organization has in place, unrealistic standards or demands that are placed on the employees. Leadership is one of the most important factors within an organization. An effective leadership will allow for effectiveness and successful organization. If the leadership, which includes managers, trainers, or any other type of position that determines the process of the organization is faulty, the whole process will be faulty as well. And if an employee sees the the leaders of the organization as capable individuals and follow their commands. Once leadership or the leaders of the organization lose control, the employees will start to show their disapproval with counterproductive work behaviors. The culture of the organization is also important for the organization's success. The culture of the organization determines employees' commitment towards the organization, the motivation of the employee, and it also affects their performance. If the culture of the organization or the company is not helping the employees achieve those factors, most likely the employees will respond with, again, counterproductive work behaviors. That could potentially be just not doing the job completely, engaging in some type of verbal conflict with any of the managers or any of the leadership team. Process of the organization can also be faulty and lack structure. As well, a well-thought process will improve the success of the organization as well as the performance and productivity of employees. When the process lacks structure and is not well communicated to employees and leadership, it can create confusion and give employees uncertainty. The constraint of the process being faulty in an organization also translates to the demands and expectations that are put on the employees. If the employees feel overwhelmed by the demands that are placed on them and are constantly given negative feedback by their leadership, this can potentially create a really bad and uncomfortable culture for the employees, which again will lead to counterproductive behaviors by the employees. When companies put profits before employees and put profits before the safety of the employees will show their disapproval by engaging in counterproductive work behaviors that will in a way harm the organization. Most of the time, my personal experience is if the employees feel like they are not being well taken care of, they feel like they shouldn't have to take care of their company. So it's a give and take relationship. As defined by Spector and Fox 2005, counterproductive work behaviors are behaviors in which individuals engage that are violation acts that harm or are intended to harm organizations or people within the organization. Grice and Sackett in 2003 proposed 11 counterproductive behaviors that included theft, destruction of property, misuse of information, misuse of time and resources, unsafe behavior, poor attendance, poor quality work, alcohol use, drug use, inappropriate verbal action, and inappropriate physical action. Counterproductive behaviors can also be personality traits, or it can be due to other factors other than specific constraints from the organization. But constraints by the organization are mainly the most common causes why individuals will engage in counterproductive behaviors because of their disapproval of how the process, leadership, or any other constraints, they are not going the way they should be going. This is all I have for the presentation. Thank you for your time.